Am I frozen? When the Frosh, when they're like asking what major to choose, they can get input from our awesome upperclassmen who were once put into the same shoes but have figured something out. So I think, yeah, for the upperclassmen, thank you so much for being willing to share your experience and stories with the Frosh. So this event is going to be recorded so we can later upload it to this account. Join us today to be able to view it. So if you are not comfortable like being featured on the camera, you can turn your camera off. That's totally okay. So first of all, like, can we go around the room for the panelists? Can you share a little bit about yourself, your name and your major and your year, and what has made you to choose what do you want to major in? Kai, would you like to start? Because you're the first person.
Sure. So my name is Kai. You can see that. That's how you pronounce it. My major is Math CS. That's a joint major in mathematics and computer science. I chose it because I wanted to study, well, I was interested in math, computer science, and physics all at the same time. It was like, I don't get to choose three, so I chose the top two, and those are math and CS. What else did you want me to say?
Well, I guess that's it. Also, you're a senior, right?
Oh yeah, I'm a senior.
Yeah.
Except like sort of like on sabbatical or something. I'm somewhere in between a junior and a senior because I'm on a gap year.
Cool. That's very cool. Jimmy, would you like to share next?
Yes, sure. So I'm Jimmy. I'm a senior engineering major, currently not on a gap year, so I'm actually I'm not in between junior and senior. I chose engineering. Well, it was from a big old list of majors that I was considering. The only two I had eliminated going into MUD were Chem and Bio because I'm awful at those. And it was a mix of me liking to do hands-on and applied stuff, and also like through sheer fate and having a bad registration number, ending up in E4, really loving it, loving the community, and that's kind of how I ended up here.
That is surely an experience I can relate to. Keo, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm a chemistry major and technically also a double major of classics at Pomona. I'll start with chemistry. I didn't like anything else, but I guess I also applied as chemistry, and it is my favorite STEM topic because, you know, everything else is hard. As for classics, it's like Greek and Roman, ancient stuff. I don't know. I liked it as a kid. And I was like, wow, what if I took more classes as a college person? And then I found out that I could, you know, major because MUD doesn't allow you to minor in things. So I'm majoring in it.
That is the way to go.
I'm a junior.
Oh, yes, that's important. Next, we'll have Celine and Kaveh.
Hi, I'm Celine. I am also a junior Chem Bio joint major. I chose Chem Bio because I really like Chem, but I like Chem as applied to biological systems. That and when I was applying to colleges, I like half-assed thought I wanted to like do engineering, and then I showed up and was like, nope. So Chem Bio all the way.
So my name is Kaveh. I am a physics major, similar to Kai. I am currently somewhere in between my junior and senior year in that I've finished my junior year, but I'm on a leave of absence. So anyway, I'm a physics major. I chose a physics major because I like to build things. And the physics major offered me like the ability to take the engineering classes I'm interested in, while also diving really deep into some of the fundamentals, which is a pretty cool combination in my opinion.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Next we have Sophia.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia and I am also taking a sabbatical this year, so kind of a junior status. And my major is mathematical and computational biology. always a mouthful when you say it to people. And when I applied to MUD, it was, I ranked math, pure math, as my top choice, which I don't know why, thinking back right now, because I really like math in high school. And then I ranked bio as second, but I took CS5 with Prof Dots in freshman year, or gold with Prof Dots, and it was really fun. I really liked it. And I thought that it's pretty important in the future to know, like have some CS background. So I decided to merge all three of my interests and just took MCP.
I forgot to mention, oh, thank you. I forgot to mention that if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat or you can unmute yourself. We'll also have time to answer questions in the end. Next, we'll have Louise.
Hi, I'm Louise. I'm a junior. I'm a physics math major, and I became a physics math major because I like physics. I also like math, even though I didn't really know either coming into college. But I also chose not to do anything else because I've never touched a computer before in my life. I can't build things. I don't know what life is, and chemicals go boom. So that's why I'm physics math.
Okay, that's interesting to know. We'll have Keizo.
Hello, I'm Keizo. I'm a real junior at MUD. And I'm majoring in CS and only CS. And I think I had a pretty strong idea going in that I wanted to do CS. So that was kind of nice and easy coming into MUD. But I think what made me attracted is like all the other sciences are like just learning about how the world works, but CS is pretty unique in that you get to like create how the world works. And I think I was really drawn to that.
Indeed, indeed. Next we'll have Gabby.
Hey, I'm Gabby. I'm a senior molecular bio major. Oh my gosh, what are the things? I chose molecular bio. I actually came in as a frosh being like, I know I'm going to major in either bio, biochem, or MCB. I came in wanting to be on like a pre-med track. So I thought a bio flavor was probably gonna happen. And then I turned out to really, really like more molecular bio stuff. So I ended up picking that track within the bio major. Yeah, I'm also one of a few pre-med people at MUD. There are 4 applying this year as seniors. So there's that if any frosh are interested.
That is very cool. Is that all the panelists that we have? Did I accidentally leave somebody else?
Yeah, hi.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Marcelo. I'm a senior. I'm actually graduating this semester. I'm a math major. I started out as math physics, and I had a really good research opportunity in math. And I was like, yeah, I should do math instead of physics. That's the story. I've also taken a lot of literature classes, so if anyone's interested in literature on the frosh side.
Cool. Excited. I think we have all representatives from all majors. Right? Yes. Next, would you like to share what's your favorite class at MUD?
I can start.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Go for it.
I think my favorite class was molecular genetics. It was just such a good, not intro because you have Bio 52, but like into like the more molecular parts of bio, which I personally enjoy a ton more. That's kind of my niche. And the profs who teach it are amazing. So, yeah.
Anyone else can go. I don't think I should go around, or I can.
All right, I'll
go next.
Okay.
So I've got one that's not a MUD class. I hope that's okay. I want to recommend Real Analysis from Pomona, which is probably one of the hardest math classes I've taken, but I think it was great because of that. If you're looking for a challenge and you think a challenge can make you better, that's a great place to look. And Pomona Math Department in general is excellent.
Cool.
Similar to Kai, my favorite class is also not at Mud. It's OChem 2 that I took last semester, and it was at Keck. It was it was challenging for me because chem was never my strongest. And then that class is all like test grade only. There was no homework grade. So I was like, well, probably gonna get a C in this class. But I think the material ended up being really fun. And the prof was also really good. So I really enjoyed the whole experience, and I really got a lot out of it. And I told my prof that I would have probably majored in chem if I like met her earlier. Versus when I came in, chem was like the major that I took out right away. And I think for MCB, I also really like biostats at Mud, especially the lab portion. It was really fun because like we learn how to use R properly, like versus in Math 35. And it was really fun in that we got to like formulate, come up with our own hypothesis, and then you like test it out in the lab. And then afterwards you like did some data analysis, and then you write up a lab report. So I thought that was a really fun experience to grow as a biologist and also just scientist.
That is indeed very cool. Anyone, Selena, I saw you unmute.
Like hopping on the trend, honestly, I'm going to agree with Gabby and Sophia that biostats and Molgen were like two really good classes, especially after Bio 52. But I think also PChem Lab was one of my favorite classes we took so far. Like we just had such a fun group of people in the class. We got to glass blow, we got to use a lot of the instruments, and it was like, I guess I'm going to repeat myself, but like such a good like real chem class. It makes you feel accomplished.
Okay, I guess I will go. Hopping off the trend is I have taken neither biostats nor PChem lab. I would say my favorite class is probably statistical mechanics. It is an incredible class. You start out with some really abstract, I don't know, ideas, formulations of a system. And then in one lecture, you can do a little bit of cool math, and out pops PV equals nRT, or some really common and really high level result from high school and intro chem.
Cool. That is interesting. So I would like to, like, yeah, thank you so much. Someone pointed out in the chat that like probably it's good for us to like not just tell people about the abbreviation, but also the whole name, because for Frosh, they probably don't know. Does anyone else want to share?
I can go.
Mm-hmm.
So this is very hard for me because there's a lot of great classes I've taken that also have made me very sad at times. But probably the best among those is what's known as experimental engineering, or engineering 80, E80. It's like the first real like experiment engineering class you take once you've begun the major. And it kind of builds off of a core class that you guys will take next year. And that's, if you know any sophomores, I think they're currently taking, called E79. I don't remember the title, but it's STEMS something, systems engineering. And really what it is you do a couple weeks of labs where you learn about sensors, statistics, and like modeling and all that stuff from an engineering perspective, like building circuits to do measurements. And then the last half of the course is you build an autonomous underwater vehicle that you design in a certain way to take measurements. And it really is it's a true engineering experience. The first time they start taking off the gloves and really want you to start getting good data and presenting your results robustly. So it's very formative to a lot of people. Some people hate it because of that, and sometimes you should hate it, but it was a very good experience nonetheless.
Cool, cool. Thanks for sharing.
I can go next. So I'm still currently taking this class, but analytical chemistry is one of my favorite classes because I guess I never thought that it could be a class in it itself where you, I don't know, learn how to analyze data, which is I guess more practical in a sense. And then the lab is also pretty fun. If we were in actual lab, we could play with fish, but we can't because, you know, we can't. But I don't know. I think the class in itself, even if like off campus digitally, it's still pretty fun where you learn how to study, analyze things.
Cool, cool. Does anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I'll have to echo first what Kai said. I think my favorite class has been real analysis, especially at Pomona. I didn't get a chance to take it at Pomona, but I think the content-wise, I think it's one of the most exciting math classes if you're planning on taking more math classes, since it introduces you to the whole thinking of like, you know, what numbers are and things like that. But I think aside from that, my favorite class was quantum mechanics at Pomona. This class was really good for me because it cut all the crap of like the lecturing, and all I did was just made you read the book during the week, and then you would go to class and do problems, and it's just heaven. It's heaven in a class. Yeah, it's like good bread.
Thanks for sharing. Oh, Luis, were you trying to say something?
Oh, okay, yeah, something just came to mind, but I don't know if at the end of the day this is my favorite class, but like one of my best experiences at Mud was taking calculus, which for me was Math 30B. But that was because I had Prof. Jakes as the prof, and he also guided Mike's, whatever cohort I was with, Summer Institute, SI. We came in with him. He taught us math during the summer, and then he taught us calculus afterwards. And that was really entertaining and nice, and it just like made calculus so much fun and like, wow. And then I don't know why the excitement kept on in like Math 60 with multivariable, but then somehow it died down a little bit, but it was still really fun and I enjoyed that a lot.
That is good to know. Thank you for sharing. I feel like everyone has gone except Keizo, so you're next.
Yeah, I had a hard time picking one, but I can at least say one that I really enjoyed recently is I took quantum info, which is like essentially quantum computing minus like the boring engineering parts of it, with Prof. Lin. And that was very cool because I think like that's not an idea that you really get to explore in the typical like path of computer science classes, and something that's just like a very new idea in the field. So learning about quantum algorithms and just thinking these like we're reading research that was written like within the last 10 years. That was very, very cool.
Yeah, I also took the class and I had a hard time. I think I'm very happy that everyone has covered a lot of different classes, and I hope people can take a recommendation and find those classes also interesting. I think for the sake of time, we're going to go into dive into the major specific questions. Can you guys describe like what's your workload looks like, and like how do you describe the general workload for people in your major? Anyone who feels ready can go.
I wonder if the engineers should start, since I hear they have somewhat of a workload.
I of course can start. So you know, I'm going to preface this by saying I think every major that you'll see is a bit rough, right? You know, you come to the school for a reason. But yeah, engineering is a little bit of no sleep hours. That's correct. That's not exactly true. I do pretty consistently get like, you know, 7-ish hours of sleep. Eight is rough. But yeah, no, so it varies depending on your year, what tech you're taking. So right now, I'm in one of the 4-credit courses, microprocessors. So there's my little board, which is essentially just you do a lot of stuff with it's like a lab class, and you do a project. So labs in that class average around like 13-ish hours a week, maybe a little longer. One particularly bad week, I was getting closer to the 20-hour frame, but this is also, you know, an upper div elective that there's only 20-ish people in the class, and if you're there, you want to be there. Like I said, varies. P-sets can be hard. It's not surprising in a lot of upper techs that I've seen or heard to have like 10-hour P-sets, or even around that time frame. But I don't think that's ridiculous, especially compared to a lot of majors when you get up to hard stuff. So it's rough, but as long as you're, taking the time and you're getting help when you need it, you can get through it.
Cool. I think when you're struggling, maybe you're having fun and learning stuff. So that's that's good. Who would like to go next?
I can go. So for bio, there are 2 tracks. So there's molecular and general bio, and then of course the joint majors as well, but they can talk about that. So if you're molecular, you take a little more chem, but not quite as much chem as a biochem major. Like I don't have to take PChem, and I don't have to take a couple, like I didn't have to take analysis or inorganic. But instead of those, you switch out, like I'm in some like general bio classes, which are like evolution and ecology. I would say the workload, I'm not going to say it's light, but I will say it's a lot more balanced, if that makes sense, because it is lab heavy. So for when you have labs, you tend to not have as much written P-sets. So it kind of, I feel like it's very balanced, and the profs are very, very sweet, and super helpful. I love going to prof office hours just like to ask questions, or also like some of them are just cool to talk to. Like they're great. As for the pre-med aspect, that one, I will say it benefited me a lot to have known earlier on that I wanted to be pre-med, and to get the recs in. That can be kind of tough, because you do need one more chem class than a molecular bio or general bio requires, and you also need one more physics lab. So there's that as well. Otherwise, you're generally pretty set in terms of pre-med requirements, other than the humanities that you tend to be not required, but highly recommended you take, which are ethics, sociology, psych, those kind of things. So trying to find out a schedule that fits was really important for me my sophomore spring on. Before then, it was mostly core that I had to worry about. But yeah, I think overall the workload's pretty good, and it is similar to, in a lot of ways, biochem and MCB, which we'll talk about. MCB has a little more, is obviously a little different because you have the math and comp components, but in workload wise, I feel like they're pretty balanced.
Cool. That cues Sophia.
Okay, I'll go next. So I think MCB actually was surprisingly pretty free in terms of schedule, because I also came in knowing that I want to do pre-med in the future, or I guess I am doing pre-med. So MCB, you have the freedom to, like, I was able to stuff all my pre-med requirements in with the MCB requirements, even though there weren't that many overlaps in terms of classes. So, but MCB, you have the freedom to choose if you want to do more like comp CS classes or more math classes. So I think that's something that I really like. Usually I think workload is fine. It depends on what class you take. So for us, like pre-meds, we have to take OChem. So even though like MCB doesn't require that, that's OChem 2 is probably the one that takes a lot of time for me. I took it last spring, and I remember just doing problems whenever I have free time. And then CS70 is also something that stood out. Usually I think it took me around like 12 hours each week, but on a bad week, it could take more. And then Kai's recommendation, real analysis, is the one that's consistently taken the longest every week. Like that class is like 20 hours each week. So it just, I think it really depends on what class you take, especially upper div. Like even though you have more workload, but I think you're also better at handling the workload. Like you know how to prioritize and like work with people you need to work with. And adding on to Gabby's, the labs, I think labs take a long time, especially the biostats lab, the experimental biology lab. That one, or was it? Yeah, that one the lab reports outside of class took a long time. I think the reports were all like 2,000, 3,000 words plus. But I think the end message is not to not take these classes, but like all these classes that I spent a lot of time in and like cried a lot in, I took away a lot, and I really enjoy the materials in the end.
That is good to know, that at least give hopes to freshmen who are struggling right now. Who would like to go next?
I guess I can go, kind of bridging off of the whole bio aspect. For the biochem major, I would say it's a little bit less flexible than just bio, just chem, or MCV, just because there are a lot of requirements in both departments that you have to fulfill. But and most of the upper div workload so far, I think, has been lab classes. So the lab classes, like they've mentioned before, are just like a huge chunk of time out of their day. So they're that 4 hours in the afternoon. PChem lab was 2 days a week. But I think at least with the chem side of things, a good thing has been they've always really given us time in lab to do the write-ups. Biostats, not so much. And so like most of my workload so far has been from either core classes, core physics classes specifically. This semester, not too bad either. It's mostly my elective and E79 that has been taking up a lot of time. So I think it, like everyone has said, it just matters what classes you are taking, because that varies a lot.
Similar for the physics major. It's difficult to say like this is a workload of a physics major, because the physics major offers a lot of space to take electives, so workloads really vary from person to person. At least in my experience, core physics classes, you have problem sets and you have labs. Problem sets take a fair bit of time each week. Maybe it varies from semester to semester depending on course load, but I normally spend a good few nights a week working on baby quantum problem sets, Fourier series, big quantum, StatMech. Maybe 12 hours a week is a good estimate. Lab classes really varied. In general, the physics labs tend to be what you make of them. So it's able to finish a lab pretty quickly or spend, I don't know, upwards of 20 hours on a lab, really diving into the details.
Sounds good. Sounds like what physics is like. Anyone who wants to know next?
I can go next, I guess. Okay, so if you're going basically pure chemistry, to me, in my head, it's not that bad. The hardest semester was class was OChem, because I guess there's a lot of memorization and a lot of, or OChem is organic chemistry. A lot of, I guess, learning on your own kind of, and doing the homework was mostly learning by myself / learning with friends. But I am fortunate to have 2 friends in chemistry. So if I don't know how to do something, I wait until they're free and then I just bother them until they tell me how to do it. Or we don't know and then we bother a professor. Most professors respond really fast, real fast. Like I don't even know, they're just on their computer. I don't know why. So chemistry in itself isn't that bad, since I guess professors, they like, if you're taking 2 chemistry classes together, the professors will know how to vary the days. So for example, one of my classes will have homework due on Mondays and then another class will have stuff due on Wednesday. So it's not that bad. The hardest part, I guess, would be labs. Like again, as Celine said, they don't, they allow you to do stuff in like you get most of it done. It's just like the timing of it. So like it's technically 4 hours, so you don't have like, I guess, that much time after to do things, I guess. I don't know. As for the classics part, it's just a lot of reading, and I read fast. So it's not an issue for me, but like I don't know, you don't have to do both, I guess. And then I think the hardest part for me doing a joint thing kind of was scheduling, though that's not really workload, but scheduling is quite difficult because labs like are like only they really only give you 2-day options, so like either Monday or Tuesday, and then like those days are set, so then I don't really have that much option to take other classes, if that makes sense. I think I'm done.
That makes sense. Thank you for sharing.
I can speak for by far the hardest major on campus, pure CS. That's a joke, by the way. Unsurprisingly, the homework is pretty much just mostly coding assignments throughout most classes. There's a couple theoretical ones that are more problem studies, but for the most problem set likes, but for the most part, there's coding assignments, whether that's on your own or with pairs or in groups. And depending on who you are, that's either very quick or not as quick. But generally speaking, yeah, the demand from the professors is not that high, I think, relative to other majors. So it's pretty nice.
Okay, I'll hop in. So my take is that I think your major choice, for the most part, doesn't make a huge difference. At least that's what I think. But my experience as a Math CS major is that it mostly varies with how much work you make yourself do. As in, if you sign up for like 13 credits, 14 credits worth of classes, you're going to have a great time, probably. If you sign up for 18 credits of courses one semester, like I did once, you are going to have a much tougher time. Also, it varies somewhat with the classes that you take. If you take hard classes in those 18 credits, it's going to be even worse. If you take easy classes, makes it better. I guess what are the classes that are hard? Someone has mentioned real analysis tends to be one of the hardest classes. I'd add to that topology. That's math 147. Real analysis is 131. I don't know. I think some consider algebra to be hard. So that's things in like math 171. And if you're doing upper divs, probably a bunch of the upper divs. That's like things above 100. I don't know. I don't think there's anything that's notorious in the math sphere. And in the CS sphere, Sophia already mentioned CS70. I think CS81 can also at times get really hard. Also, anything you take with Nicholas Pippinger will be very difficult, which could be a good thing, but it will be quite difficult. Yeah, other than that, workload is it's whatever you make of it. You have a great, I don't know. I've had great semesters. I've had tough semesters, and it's all very much like how much I've signed up for. I guess there's one thing I would like to add is this is not part of my major, but part of my HSA concentration, and I signed up for a handful of art classes, one from Scripps and one from Pitzer. Art classes tend to take up a lot of time because you have to be in the studio, finishing up all sorts of projects and art projects are not things that you can just haphazardly do and just get rid of it, because you simply the process of it just takes a bunch of time. So that's one thing that made my hard semesters even harder.
Thank you for sharing.
I guess since Kai talked a little bit about math classes, I can just jump off that. I would say if workload is something that any of you are worried about in general in a major, I would definitely go with a math major. Math major, you do most of your classes in the core, and then you have a couple extra classes, thesis, and then electives. And that's the bulk of the math major. However, from class to class and day to day, it could be a different story, because most of the workload that you get from classes can come from not actually the homework themselves, since all you do in a regular math PSET is just state why a certain statement is true, and it's usually already true unless the professor is like a dick. What usually the workload comes from is just trying to understand the concepts behind like everything the professor talks about and everything the textbook might be talking about. And that is totally variable from person to person. I remember there were days where I would see a problem in a homework assignment, and I just so happened to have seen a very similar problem before, and it would take like 10 minutes. But then you get to like a different type of proof problem, and suddenly it takes you like 8 hours trying to come up with an argument. And then you look back at the argument and you're like, oh my gosh, I wrote the first line wrong. And it's completely variable, the workload, yeah.
Cool. I guess that's everyone for these questions. There's a question in the chat about summer research and working with prof. Does anyone wants to jump up on that?
I have half a story to share. It's maybe not the best at advertising summer research, but the summer after my freshman year, I did like quantum optics, quantum information research, basically with Prof. Lin. And the project was something like, I don't know, like use quantum mechanics to like analyze the behavior of photons, and like come up with communication schemes by which like two people can verify our photons are entangled or not. And it has useful cryptographic implications. My experience doing it was we went in and she had us read like papers, which were senior theses from people who had graduated MUD on the same topic. We read them, figured out some of the physics, and then she was like, hey, honestly, like just explore like whatever question, come up with some questions, explore whatever, do whatever you want to like make something happen in the lab. And she just gave us access to her lab. So that was nice. It was like an open-ended thing. As it turns out, I don't have this is probably part of why I ended up deciding, maybe the higher up I go in physics, the less I enjoy it. So I was like, I looked at all this physics and I was like, I don't know how to do like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with like qubits and like, like Alice sends a pair of like this thing to like, I don't know what I'm doing there. So I was like, okay, fine. What can I do? There's like this motor sitting in the lab. There's like, okay, I have to backtrack a little bit. So the way things were done in the lab is like you send a beam of photons down a bunch of like little components like lenses and like beam splitters and stuff that you need to like rotate and adjust to make measurements. And I was like, this is unacceptable. I will never use my hands for anything ever. So I was like, I found a piece of like a motorized little like lens mount sitting around, and I was like, why don't I like just spend all of my time replacing these like hand cranked components with digital components? And I ended up spending all of my physics research project just enhancing the like IT of the lab, and I don't know, doing CS under the guise of physics research. So that's my experience. It's whatever you make of it.
I think it at least shows like as freshmen or as anyone, you have the freedom to design your project to be whatever that's beneficial to you. Yeah. Gabby, I saw you unmute. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so you can fund for bio, at least, I'm not sure about the other majors, but you can start doing research with the profs, like starting your freshman spring. So I did that with Prof. Stovall, who's a microbiologist. And I've been working in his lab since my freshman year. And I did summer research with him for the past 3 years because I was just very attached to the lab. I really, really enjoyed it. And ultimately, like working with honestly, I just really like the bio department. Like they're like half family at this point, but it can, as Kate actually said right now, but like it can really help you decide what you like to do. Some people tried bio research and they were like, maybe I like CS more, like for the people who were between MCB, for example, or a couple people who felt that way. It made me realize I wanted to do a PhD as well. So I'm applying to MD PhD programs this cycle for microbio, which is exciting. So yeah, it really, really helped me figure out that I was passionate about research too, not just medicine. And I think all of the profs, I think throughout the disciplines, though of course I really only know the bio and some chem profs well, um, are really open to talking about their research. And at least early on, they try to get you to stand on your own 2 feet pretty early. I started design, like I did my own project starting my freshman summer. So, and ever since then, I've been working on the same project and kind of building on it through the years, and it's now my thesis. So you can stick with the same lab. I have friends who switch labs every summer just to survey things. It really depends. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Does anyone else want to jump on that?
I could add a
I
little
can.
bit.
Oh,
Go ahead. Okay. Kind of different from Gabby. I kind of switch around labs. So I was in Prof. Orwin's lab, the bioengineering lab in my freshman year summer. And it was kind of free, but we still had projects that that was set, and we were just part of the projects. So her lab, we were working on an injectable collagen gel that's seeded with nanoparticles that are like anti-inflammatory and also antibacterial, and also stem cells in that collagen gel. And it's supposed to help alleviate the secondary inflammation for traumatic brain injury. So I thought that was a really cool project where I got to learn new things that I didn't learn in high school. And I switched around, so I joined Prof. Her's lab. Or I spoke to him in freshman year, but I joined his lab earlier this year, like 2020, before coronavirus shut down everything. And Prof. Her's lab, we were working with flies, fruit flies, and like my project was where we were like, I was cold shocking, like stressing the flies out, and then see if that helps them become more like immune to later on bigger stresses and help them survive that. So that was like more on the molecular bio side. And I also reached out to a Pomona professor, Professor Elizabeth Glader, and she's a neuroscience professor. I wanted to explore that neuroscience, and her lab was working with C. elegans, and we're investigating the neural circuitry regarding like recognizing complex bacterial odor. So you're seeing like which side, like with which side, what kind of odor would the worms choose if you activate certain genes. So we did a lot of chemotaxis assays to investigate that. And I think it's just really fun because like you have other professors at other colleges that you can reach out to. So you get to explore a variety. Like even though MUT doesn't have neuroscience major, you can still do that at other colleges.
I guess I will go next. So I guess first off, there is no pressure for you guys to do research your freshman year. Like no pressure, absolutely. I did not do, okay, I didn't do anything chemistry related my freshman year. I stayed at home and worked with a family friend in psychology at UCSF, purely because she was a family friend. But yeah, absolutely no pressure whatsoever. So then sophomore year, after sophomore year, which is the summer before this, I was supposed to be in Van Hubelen's lab, doing actual chemistry, but instead, coronavirus. So I got stuck with computational chemistry, which I thought I would not enjoy, but I gave it a shot. Turns out I do not like it, but I did have fun. We just computationally did what we would have done in the lab, which is A, more safe, 2, cheaper, and 3, faster. Yeah, and 3, faster. And yeah, Van Hubelen's super nice. All the profs are, I think. And yeah, they do really push you to stand on your own 2 feet, as I forgot who said. I don't have anything else to say.
I think for the sake of time, we'll cut it here. And if you have more questions, we can chat offline. My last question for all the panelists is, I guess you can choose from those two questions. First, what are you going to do after graduate with your degree? And second, do you have any advice for the freshmen? For example, for someone who just started their career, their major, is there any resource you would recommend them to explore? Anyone can jump in.
Okay, I'll do my best to keep it brief. So regarding advice, whether it's choosing your major or diving deeper into things that you've already chosen, if you're on the side of not knowing what you want to do and trying to figure out what major you want to do, my advice, based on my personal opinions, is that you should try to think less about what you should do and just simply think about what you want to do. I know people who have stressed out over I really want to be doing this one thing, but my mom says I should do this, this thing makes more money, this thing looks better on my resume, this is more practical. Don't worry about any of that. Just do something that you like to do. And if you like doing what you do, you'll do it better. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you already know what you're doing and you're just going on taking classes, whatever, my advice coming from my own experience is to take it easy on yourself, as in don't sign up for a million things, because when you do sign up for a million things, you'll overwhelm yourself. And I know oh, I'm not going to overwhelm myself, I'm good, unlike you, except I've done that, and it has not, I survived, I passed, it was fine, but I didn't learn as much as I could have if I had done less. So this is my advice. Feel free to ignore it, but I think it will work better if you don't. Also, when we get back to school, do check out some of my favorite restaurants around school, such as Eureka Burger and Blaze Pizza. Those are places that I commonly frequented on late nights when I did problem sets with my friends.
I'll add on. Definitely, I would also agree. Just do what makes you happy, especially for your first year. You do not have to stress out. Even if you end up being pre-med, a lot of someone decided the end of their junior year that's I'm actually going to apply this summer. It's possible. So no pressure if you're still thinking about it. For what I'm doing, I said it briefly, but I am applying to MD PhD program. So hopefully, hopefully next year I'll be matriculating into one. Interview season and stuff is starting now, so I'll let you know. But so in terms of prepping for that, if you're interested in med, take the MCAT. Ideally your junior winter, just so it's less things to worry about over the summer you're applying. Talk to the pre-health advisor. They switched over. It's not Prof. Haushalter anymore. But I'm now blanking on who it is now. I can get back to you. And find friends who are also pre-med. It doesn't have to be at MUD, but friends, it's just nice to have solidarity with someone who's also applying. It's the college process, except again. And so it's nice to have people who are also in that same boat. And also, for bio in general, there's a lot of things you can do. I genuinely believe that you don't just have to go to med, you don't just have to go into being a professor. Some people do want to do grad school or med school or both. Other people want to go into industry right away. Other people end up doing something completely different. And those are all totally options that are valid, and you can do a lot with a bio degree as long as it makes you happy. And like what Kai said, I really second all of that.
I would also say just go talk to profs. They're really useful, and I feel like everyone not pretends, but you have the impression that everyone knows what they're doing, but realistically no one really knows what they're doing. And it's okay to not know what you're doing, but the profs have a lot of experience. They've talked through a lot of teachers or they've worked with a lot of students, and they're always willing to give their time to make sure you you are getting where you want to be, at least. And then also sometimes the prof don't even know what they're doing. So if they're going on one of their little mind tangents and have a really cool project that they need students on, you can hop on that.
I guess it is my turn now, as we are unmuted. I second everything that Celine said. one of my biggest regrets from freshman year is not spending more time actually just going and talking to profs when I'm confused on some concept, or even just to learn more about their research. On a different topic, don't feel shy to just like show up in some class you're interested in, even if it is a junior or senior class and you are a freshman. It's, in my opinion, one of the best ways to learn if some certain topic is right for you, or whether you want to like plan your courses such that you can take this higher level class later. And for the few classes that I sat in on, it was a really fascinating experience.
He also showed up to PChem.
I did show up to PChem. It was also a fascinating experience.
And adding on to all of that, I think mentors are also really important. Not necessarily like dorm mentors, even though they're super important too. I think just finding your own mentors in areas that you want guidance, I think that's super helpful. And also just networking with like people outside of MUD. I think that's also helped me a lot. Clubs outside, or like volunteer clubs, or like academic ones. I think you get to meet a lot more people, and then you know who to turn to when you need help. And I think one thing that's helped me all these years is a guilt-free relaxation session. So like when you're relaxing, just try to relax, like reward yourself and don't feel bad about relaxing. I think that's really gonna help you power through. Like if you're trying to relax and you're like, oh, I feel bad, I shouldn't be doing this, or like I have like 2 more problem sets that I need to finish, then you're not really relaxing. I think it's counterproductive.
This is really not advice helpful for like picking majors, but I've also had a really great experience with just taking super random hums from the other colleges. I think like we very much forget how much of a resource the other colleges are. And like I had just randomly chose to take like a poetry class once, and that was like probably the coolest thing I ever did, in terms of just like having to think in a way that I have never before. And so I think being really excited about stuff that is really random is like part of the reason why people come to MUD, and it's like makes me really sad to see when people forget that. So.
Yeah, I can go off that. I think looking back, one of the biggest mistakes I made was declaring math physics so early as a frosh. I was just so determined that like, oh yeah, math and physics, this is like my thing. None of these other little silly classes are going to be interesting at all. And I just, went for the math and physics classes. Well, and then like a year ago, I randomly took a poetry class too, and I was like, oh my gosh, literature is so cool. And I don't think I would have done that without like you trying to convince myself to be more open to potentially learning different things. I think I also regret not taking more CS classes just because of that honing pattern. But yeah, CS classes are pretty useful.
Just speaking as someone who had no idea what they wanted to do when they came in, I would highly recommend just, looking for electives that you find interesting, especially during core, since, you got 3 whole semesters to do whatever you want on top of the stuff you're being forced to do anyway. So you don't need to declare anything. You can take, I took a math elective my freshman fall. Then I took engineering, I did some CS stuff, and it really helped me figure out what I like to do. So would highly recommend just, picking a few things that seem interesting and going in there. And plus, with the hums, that also helps a lot too. But even other major classes.
I think I am next. I think. So I'm a junior, and so right after sophomore year, I was like, okay, I know I'm a chem major, but what am I gonna do with this chem major? I think I Googled all possible jobs for a chem major, wrote down every single one, researched what the job does, et cetera, how much they make, because we all know that's important. And I crossed off things I didn't like. And then I finally ended upon pre-pharm, which I had thought about when I was a freshman, but I was like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if it's possible. So I have settled on, so I've settled upon pre-pharmacy. So because solely because I did have an interest in it, and I can say I will sell drugs. Like it's gonna be so fun. But like that's totally not the first reason I'm doing pharmacy. Definitely not the first reason. But yeah, I finally settled upon doing pre-pharmacy. I am still trying to shove in all the requirements. It's definitely doable. I might take a gap year, but don't worry about that. Just, as everyone else said, like pick something you like and pick something that you think you can do for the rest of your life, because this is the rest of your life that you're talking about. I'm definitely not selling drugs. I would never. But yeah, I forgot what else I was gonna say. Oh yeah, fine. Upperclassmen, we will find any opportunity to procrastinate. So if you have questions, go ahead and ask it.
I'll say something. Someone could probably say it better than me, but like, what's in my mind is that it's very easy to get caught up. Okay, maybe just for me, but in maybe like comparing yourself to other people. And I think that like the couple things, right? Like the first thing is Mud wasn't meant to be competitive. It's very much advertised as a collaborative thing, and most of the time you will see that it is a collaborative experience. But again, there's these moments when you're like, oh, someone else is probably doing this better than me, and like I'm a failure or whatever. Okay, so that's sad. Oh wait, problematic. Don't do that. But like the one thing that comes to mind is like, this is so dumb, but like you are doing your own path. This is your life, and you I don't know why, but the song like "Life is a Highway" and I want to ride it on my own, like that's the kind of thing you should think about. Like this is how I'm gonna handle these things, and I'm gonna do it. And yeah, like try to keep that mentality as much as possible at Mud, and just persevere and keep moving forward, because definitely there'll be all the times when you're like, oh, what the, and it's just a matter of like taking it like and being like, yep, I'm still gonna do it.
Cool. We ended up with a very positive notes. I think the whole vibe is very positive. Thank you guys so much. We're in time. We're at the end of this panel. But if you like to stay, feel free to stay. But if you want to go, feel free to go. I guess like we can take questions from like the attendant. If you have any questions, we can have a Q&A sessions. But if you don't have to stay if you have stuff to do. Thank you guys so much for coming.
I was hoping to ask about, well, I came into Mud thinking I wanted to do engineering, and then I applied to Mud thinking I wanted to do engineering, and then I did like a summer workshop that was about like astronomy and cosmology and physics. And like we were like the very basics of the standard model and listened to people talk about their research, and it was just really interesting. And I remember someone said that they liked like the physics because it has an engineering aspect, but also like a really like depth aspect. And I wonder if that person could kind of talk about like what types of engineering, because I really do like engineering, what types of engineering they do in their physics major, and also like in their, if they like the types of research that they've done.
Oh, this is you, Chief.
So yeah, that was me.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm a physics major. I've taken a lot of engineering classes. Generally, I'm pretty interested in like semiconductors, in device physics. Like, why do things conduct? How do transistors work? Why do some things absorb light? And I've found that the engineering major has given me a lot of flexibility to.
Physics major?
Thank you. Well, and the engineering major. That the physics major has given me a lot of flexibility to take classes on both a very low level, things like quantum, big quantum, a solid state class, as well as being able to explore some of the like applications of these low level ideas in classes on the engineering side. There are lots of really interesting electronics classes, like MicroPs, which I think Jimmy mentioned previously. Yeah. And analog electronics class and a digital electronics class, which are all fascinating. Anyway, so as I guess the other part of your question was, how have I applied these things? So I've done research every year while I've been at Mud. For my freshman and sophomore years, I did like digital electronics and computer architecture research with Prof. Harris. Prof. Harris is awesome. I swing by his office at the start of freshman year. We talked about some of the things I was interested in. He talked about some of the research that he had been doing with his group. And so that's how we got that connection. The projects have been pretty varied. We spent some time actually designing a little computer chip to process data from a cell phone camera. We also spent some time designing like little circuit boards for MicroPs, in fact, as well as some other smaller interesting projects. I've also spent some time working with Prof. Bresnay in the physics department. Prof. Bresnay does solid state physics. And he's been doing some really cool work analyzing heat capacity of things. What's up?
Nothing.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting distracted. I've kind of been going off in tangents, but in the big picture, the physics major has a ton of really interesting classes, and it's also small enough that it lets you spend a lot of time exploring electives that you're interested in or classes in other majors that you're interested in. And I found that's given me a lot of flexibility to really explore exactly what I want to do. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Please ask me more questions.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, that's what I was asking. Could you also say anything about like why, like how you were did you come into Mud hoping to do physics or engineering, or do you have no idea? And how were you kind of like exposed to physics in a way that made you be like, oh, that's what I want to do?
Oh, that's a tricky question. It's been a few years.
You declared last year.
Yeah, as Celine mentioned, I also declared last year. Don't do that. You get some angry emails. So I came into Mud pretty indecisive. In the big picture, after Mud, I'd like to end up in some career where I build things. I don't think I want to end up doing fundamental research. And so that naturally led me towards engineering. But what I found is that I was also really, really interested in like fundamentally how the things I'm building work, maybe at a level of abstraction that's too deep to be useful. But I still had I was still quite curious about. I don't know, you have like a computer. In your computer, you have a computer chip. That computer chip has some digital logic that you can analyze using Boolean algebra. Then go a few levels lower, you have these transistors. And you can look at these transistors with analog circuit design. And then you go even lower, and you really have these little bits of silicon that you put bits of other materials in that talk to each other in weird ways to do these mathematical operations. And I wanted to understand that part too. And that's really where the physics major came in. Also, just looking at the course list, physics has some really, really fascinating courses. Like I mentioned StatMech, where you derive all of these interesting chemical relationships from a very fundamental level. And like quantum physics, where you...
It's again chemistry and like...
Yeah, hard to describe, where you learn how things really work away from the approximations of classical mechanics. And anyway, I found that just like looking over potential courses, many of the physics courses looked really, really interesting to me. And so that's how I ended up as a physics major.
Awesome. One last question. I have not taken SpecRel yet. Did you like SpecRel?
I really enjoyed SpecRel.
Nice.
SpecRel's a really fun class,
yeah,
even as a not physics major.
It's really fun. It's really unintuitive. it remains really unintuitive, but it gives you a interesting new, I don't know, exposure to an interesting new branch of physics.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Of course. Just let me know if you have any more questions.
Yeah, I'd like to add for Frosh, potentially watching this video, as you can see, all the upperclassmen, they're very excited to share their story and experience with you. So all you need to do is don't shy away from asking a question, reach out to random upperclassmen. If they don't feel comfortable answering your question, try another upperclassman. Yeah, just
We
feel free to
tend
reach out.
we tend to adopt Frosh, but because of coronavirus, we have not been able to adopt Frosh. So we have been real excited if, Frosh talked to us.
Tell people
Because
to come to AE.
human interaction, what is that?
Please come to AE so I can hang out with people. We've been
Eva, you are still adopted Frosh. I don't know what you're talking about.
once a Frosh, always a Frosh.
That
Everyone.
is true.
Also, don't feel like your questions have to be restricted to the session here. Just shoot one of us an email or something if you have any more questions. I'm sure that ResLife or whatever other upperclassmen you're in contact with would be happy to point you towards people who can answer your questions.
Yeah, we all know people. We'll get you in contact with the right person.
Wait, I only know like 3 people.